The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Any health advice given, whether general, diet, physical or spiritual, is general only and must be verified by your doctor. If you need medical advice, please consult a doctor.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Health and Fitness Show. I am your host for this evening, Suliman Rafiq, and we are broadcasting live from the studios of Inspire FM today on Thursday, the 5th of December 2019, broadcasting our vibes to Luton and surrounding areas. As always, you can join us on 105.1 FM. As well as that, you can listen to us via the Inspire FM website. And if you prefer to watch as well as listen, you can do so via Facebook. Go onto our Facebook page and click on the live link. So as you'll be aware, every week we look to cover a different health-related topic, and today we'll be speaking about menopause and midlife women's health. Hopefully this will be of interest not just to women but to men also, and it will be insightful and informative. I know this is a topic I've only very recently learned about, and I found it really helpful to understand more about this as well. So I'm delighted to say that we have some expert guests with us. We have not one but two doctors who will be joining us this evening on the phone, and we also have a public health specialist as well. So I'm just going to start by asking Elizabeth to introduce herself.
I'm Elizabeth Bailey and I work at Luton Borough Council's public health team, and I'm also a lady of 54 who knows a little bit about this topic. Fantastic.
And I know that you've been championing it and championing training within workplaces as well.
Definitely have, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really great, and it's how I kind of came across it. So I'm indebted to you for that. In addition, we should also have guests on the line. Can you hear me? We're just arranging for that now, so bear with us with that. So, Elizabeth, just before we get into the details of today's show, can I start by asking a general kind of public health question in regards to why is it important to raise awareness about topics like menopause?
Well, I think it's a topic that for a long time people have been a little bit shy about, or a little bit embarrassed about. But it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's a normal part of a woman's life. It's potentially has an impact not just on her but her partner and her family, and it's something, although there are parts of it that are quite very personal, there are also parts that are, it's just about being practical, and it's about helping women move to another stage of their life in a comfortable and healthy way. So it is very, very important. And with menopause often come a lot of symptoms that can make a woman's life a little bit more awkward or difficult, but can be managed and can be accommodated in the workplace, for example, much better.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And hopefully now we should also have Dr. Nighat Arif on the phone. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for giving up your time to be with us. I know you've done a huge amount in this area, and it's a real honour and pleasure to have you on the show, and just take this opportunity to thank you for all the work that you have been doing. We've been following it here in Luton as well. So it's great to have you on the Health and Fitness Show. I know you've been on various other Inspire FM shows, but I think it's the first time on the Health and Fitness Show. So thank you very much for giving up your evening to be with us. Nighat, just for people that haven't heard of you before, can I just ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Dr. Nighat Arif. I'm a GP in Buckinghamshire. I specifically work in Amersham and Beaconsfield, and I have a specialist interest in women's health. And a part of that is spun off into treating women with the menopause. I typically look after South Asian women, so women from a Pakistani background who speak Punjabi, or from a Mirpur background. And there's a real lack of knowledge and education and awareness of what the menopause is and the health implications that can derive from that. So I'm trying to raise awareness amongst my Pakistani ladies with that.
Fantastic. And just as we were saying in the intro there, I think what's helpful as well is that for men as well to be aware of the different symptoms and signs and how that impacts on women in their lives, and as a community, all of us being more aware about this is really helpful. So I'm also going to ask our last guest, Dr. Sarah Ball, just to introduce herself and explain a little bit of her connection to the topic today.
Hi there, thank you for inviting me on your show. So I'm Dr. Sarah Ball, I'm a GP, and I, like Nighat, also have a keen interest in women's health, and I work in a menopause clinic, Newton Health Menopause Wellbeing Centre, which is up in Stratford-upon-Avon. And I too am extremely passionate about trying to encourage all people, women and men, to know more about the menopause and to get talking about it.
That's great. Thank you very much for giving up your evening to be with us. Before we go any further, I'm just going to invite our listeners to get involved, and you can do that by calling 01582 481822, or you can text or WhatsApp us on 0777 9481822. That number again, 0777 9481822. And as I said at the beginning, we're very fortunate today to have 3 expert guests, so they're more than happy to take your questions, and it does really help the quality of the show when people do get involved, and we've had a lot of involvement over the last few weeks, so please do kind of keep that up. So the first question is without doubt the most important one, and that is, what is the menopause? So Nighat, if I may, I'm going to start with you.
So the menopause is sometimes called the change, and in different languages, in Punjabi it's known as kapde khatam ho jate, in Urdu it's known as banji. So there are different words for it. Menopause is, by definition, is when the woman stops menstruating, so her menses stops, and that's typically between the age of 45 to 50. The national average of stopping periods in this country is about 53. But we do know that there's something known as perimenopause. So that's up to 10 years before, where the estrogen and the progesterone fluctuate. So women can have symptoms, but still she's menstruating. And then there's something known as postmenopause. So that's 1 year without a period. So it's 1 year, 1 day without a period. And then the woman is known as she's in the postmenopausal phase. And it's really important to understand that there are 3, they're not so distinct, but they can flow into each other. There's various terminology that gets bandied around, but menopause is typically the woman stops menstruating.
Great, fantastic. Apologies, I'm not sure, we're getting a little bit of background noise from one of the calls, so just if there's any possibility.
I do apologise, it might be me, my little one.
No problem. I know what it's like. When I'm working from home, I have the same problem.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's no problem at all. It's no problem. So as I say, I'm very used to it. I'm on conference calls with colleagues and my little ones in the background. But we're very, very pleased to have you and your little one. No,
it's the minute I get on the phone, typically he just wants to make a lot of noise, so he's trying to hoover the house.
Fantastic. He's doing a good job. And can I just clarify, you mentioned the age range is there, but does the menopause affect every woman, or does it not?
Well, yeah, every woman that has a period, she will go through the menopause. But menopause, we realise, can happen at any age. So there's something known as ovarian failure, primary ovarian failure. So that's, unfortunately, some women's ovaries stop producing the various hormones that are necessary. And therefore, that can happen in younger women. So any age, I think the youngest in this country is 15 years old. And she's gone through the menopause because her ovaries have stop working. So that's why I loosely apply ages. I don't stick with it as a GP. It's really important to listen to the symptoms that the woman is describing.
Sure. And so at that point I'd like to bring Sarah in terms of, can you describe some of the symptoms that you'd experience?
Yeah, of course, yeah, and there are so many symptoms, and I think that's what makes the menopause maybe slightly confusing and scary to people, because the symptoms are so variable. But broadly speaking, there's sort of three main groups of symptoms. So there's a lot of physical symptoms. So you've obviously got your change in your periods. Many women experience hot sweats and flushes, but also many women experience a lot of aches and pains, sort of generalised across their body. Our skin can change, we can become very itchy, our sleep tends to decline, and we can become extremely tired. And then there's also a lot of psychological symptoms and symptoms that affect how our brain works, really. So women can experience increased mood swings, they can often experience anxiety and depression, often for the first time in their life. And the brain can feel very foggy, so cognitive skills that involve things like memory and concentration can become quite poor, and so women often lose self-esteem and confidence around that time of life, and it can affect not only their personal lives but their work life as well. And then there's sort of the third main group of symptoms are the ones that many women find more difficult to talk about, because it tends to relate more to their sort of intimate physical health and things that affect their urinary symptoms and also their sort of genital area, which can cause a lot of distress as well, and are really important also to talk about.
Sure. And is it possibly due to these kind of quite serious symptoms that there's been an increase in awareness, Elizabeth, or increase in attempt in raising awareness?
Well, I think a key point I would like to get across is the importance of understanding in workplaces, for example, because a lot of women I've spoken to in my own workplace, and where we work, Suliman, during the day, our employee base is 67% women between the ages of 40 to 60. So absolutely this range of women. And I've spoken to individual women, and they've said they've been confused by the symptoms, embarrassed by them, and they don't have the confidence to talk to their line managers about possible ways of working that might support them, like flexible working or working from home or working in environments where they can open the window to keep a bit cooler, and just practical things like that. So I think it's more about understanding why people might want to work in different ways, or it might affect their work at that kind of age range, and being open about it and understanding it and being supportive so that women at that time of their lives can flourish and thrive.
Absolutely. So I think someone was trying to come in there.
No, I was just going to add to that. Because of menopausal symptoms, whether they recognise that that's what their symptoms are due to or not, and actually even worse, about 1 in 10 women actually leave their job due to menopausal symptoms, which for most women at this age are actually at the height of their career, and we are losing an extremely valuable portion of the workforce for no really good reason, really just through ignorance, really. And so it's I think that's a big reason why menopause is getting more and more into the media at the moment, which is great, but there's a lot more work to do.
Sure. So Nighat, you mentioned earlier there that there's a particular lack of awareness within the South Asian community particularly, and so I appreciate you speak a bit of Punjabi, so I would, just while we're at the beginning of the show, invite you to just do a little summary in Punjabi, just for people that may be listening.
Yeah, apologies, Sarah Elizabeth, because
that's all right,
I don't know if you speak good Punjabi. Not yet. I'll teach you, Sarah, don't worry.
Thank you.
In Punjabi, Well, there is no word for it, so I think, so I'll just say how I understand it in Punjabi. So, जो आपके लिसनर है जो पंजाबी या उर्दू या मीरपुरी गल्लां करते हैं उन्होंने मैं कहना चाहनी हूं जो हर औरत ਨੂੰ मेनोपॉज ਹੁੰਦਾ है मेनोपॉज ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਜੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਈਕਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੇ ਪੀਰੀਅਡ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਤੇ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਰ ਔਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਕਿ 10% ਜਾਂ 20% ਔਰਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਖਤਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਪਟਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਤੇ ਸਿੰਪਟਮ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਸੀਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਆਏਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਪਸੀਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਆਏਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਜਲਦੀ ਖਾਂਸੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਜਾਂ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨੀ ਜਲਦੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਖਦਾ ਕਿ ਡਿਪਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਪਟਮ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਣ ਤਾਂ ਖਾਸ ਕਰ ਜੋ ਸਹਿਰਾ ਐਲਿਜ਼ਬeth ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਕੰਮ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲਾਤ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਤਾਂ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਸੌ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਇਸ ਨੀਂਦਰ ਦੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਤੋਂ ਪਸੀਨੇ ਦੀ ਵਜ੍ਹਾ ਤੋਂ ਸੁਬਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਮ ਫਿਰ ਰਾਤ ਤੋਂ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਲ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੁੱਢੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਬੋਲਦੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣ ਦੇਖੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਪਟਮ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਫਿਰ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਮੈਨੋਪੌਜ਼ ਦੀ ਆਦਤ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ symptom again.
Thank you very much for that. And I understood it, so my mum's going to be really happy. I can't speak it that well, but I understood it well. So, and then just in relation to, obviously we've been speaking about menopause and raising awareness. If we do have now listeners who have related to some of what you've said, can I ask specifically, Sarah, what should someone do if they have recognised some of the signs and symptoms that we've discussed?
I think once you recognise symptoms, it really does help focus a woman's mind. I think a lot of women are sort of don't concentrate on themselves particularly. They prioritise maybe other people, family members, and then I think maybe something one day sort of piques their interest, and I think at this point being able to have some more information now, whether that's talking to friends or sort of trusted family members that you can talk it through with, is great. Just to share the issue. There's a lot of, obviously, a wealth of information on the internet these days, and some is good and some is bad, but there are some very reliable, helpful resources out there now which can be really helpful. We often direct women to something called the Green Climacteric Score, which is a very simple tick box questionnaire, and it's got the principal 21 symptoms of the menopause on there, and that can really help focus a woman's mind. And to try and get information that's sort of culturally sensitive to her as well, and to talk to her GP. Ideally, I know that's not always the easiest thing in the world in this day and age, but it can be very helpful at your GP surgery to actually ask at the reception if one of the GPs or practice nurses actually has a particular interest. So somebody like Nighat or myself, for example, would be sort of better placed than perhaps some other GPs to have that conversation. So to really urge that woman to seek help. It's not, a lot of women see it as an inevitable transition that they just have to endure, and that's not the case. And often the sooner they get help, actually the better it is for their health at the time, but also heading into the future.
Sure. And Elizabeth and Nighat, is there anything you want to add to that? Because it's obviously important.
Well, I was going to say, Sarah, I use Sarah's my menopause doctor website actually.
It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's a wealth of information on there, and actually it's very easily accessible. So you can print off leaflets, print about the different types of HRT, and also there's a section on there that how to approach the conversation with the GP, because if your doctor isn't trained in the menopause or even women's health, then it might not be on their radar as a diagnosis, because some of the symptoms are very hodgepodge, so they appear at different times, and women tend to put them down to life events. So I'm 40, I'm looking after elderly parents now who've got dementia, or my children have gone off to university, so it's always put down to a different reason in their life. And it's joining those dots together. So I always say to women, please keep a symptom diary and take that along with you. Menopause Doctor website is brilliant, and the NHS website, it's getting better and better in order to provide information to women.
Fantastic. So,
do you mind if I just add about on the Menopause Doctor website, in the resource section, there are some booklets, and actually they're just being translated into Urdu, so that we can help more cultures. which is obviously really important.
Fantastic. So people can, sorry Elizabeth, people can, no, it's good. People can just search for, what was the website, sorry?
So www.menopausedoctor.co.uk.
Menopausedoctor.co.uk.
Yeah, there's a wealth of information on there, but resource and booklets, and then they will be soon in different languages on there.
Fantastic. Elizabeth?
Well, I just wanted to add that it's good if people can talk about it openly with their families and in the workplace, because it becomes less embarrassing, and then people understand better why you might be facing certain things. In my case, I do get absent-minded. I do forget the words for things, which was a bit of a shock to me, because I've always been very mentally sharp. So now if I forget somebody's name in the workplace, I can, at least I've said to my colleagues, this is the reason why, and they will understand. And they don't think I'm not very good at my job or anything like that.
And Nighat, one of the reasons why I was so keen to discuss this on Inspire was I was watching the YouTube video that you did with Diane, and you gave the case study of the like auntie, and she put it down to the stress of looking for a rishta. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
So I come back to that point earlier that I made, that women tend to put it on other events that are going on, and women, at the end of the day, in my culture particularly, and I think I can actually generalise to other cultures, Sarah and Elizabeth, you can back me up on this if you like, is that the buck always stops with the woman. Everything's her fault at the end of the day. But it's typical. And so what I do is I get ladies who come and see me, and they'll say, oh, I'm looking for arranged marriages, which is typically the common practice at the minute. I'm looking for a rishta. My daughter is very well educated, but I can't find a boy for her. I'm so sorry about my child.
That's okay. Keeping us on our toes.
and typically those are the things that it's put down to, or I'm looking after my elderly parents.
No problem. Nighat, I'm just going to come back. I'm conscious that I want to give this case study justice. I'm conscious that we're approaching a break, and we've had some questions in as well. So I'm just gonna pause just for a second. I'm just going to remind listeners. Thank you for your messages so far, and you can text or WhatsApp us on 07779 481822. That number again, 07779 481822. We are fast approaching our advert break. However, I would just like to pick up on a question here from a listener. It starts off with a statement and then goes to a question. So, good topic. It's a taboo subject within Asian community. What I would like to know is the effect of menopause on bones. Does it really affect bones and make them weak, more prone to fractures? So thank you very much for the listener for that question. Sarah, would you be happy to pick that one up?
Yes, it absolutely affects our bones. Our bone density is very dependent on estrogen, and so our bone density is relatively well preserved during our reproductive years, and then within about 5 years of our menopause, our bone density does essentially fall off a cliff, and our bone becomes a lot less strong, so therefore much more likely to break without too much trauma, and osteoporosis actually affects half of all women after the menopause, and between 1 in 2 and 1 in 3 women after the menopause will have a fracture at some point. So replacing estrogen is the most effective way of preventing bone loss and also treating bone loss. So we really shouldn't underestimate the power of estrogen to protect our skeleton.
Fantastic. And we're going to come on after the break to talk more about, because listeners clearly listening very carefully, because we've mentioned HRT, which is obviously an acronym, and not entirely sure what that meant. So what we will be doing in the second half of the show is picking up more around what we can do, what we can do in terms of what support is available, and etc. as well. I'm conscious Elizabeth wants to come in.
I just wanted to say I'm one of those women who can't take HRT. HRT because I've had estrogen-positive breast cancer. So whatever the doctors can tell us about ladies in my position would be very welcome. Thank you.
There you go. So you've taken the opportunity to ask a question.
I have, yes. What's the best thing to do? It's probably bone strengthening exercise and eating dairy products, I guess. I don't know, but I'll take your advice on that.
Sure. So we will come to that question after the break. And just a final shout out for our listeners, and just to remind them of the number, it is 01582 481822, and the text or WhatsApp number is 07779 481822. So we've got lots more questions around menopause and its associated complications, what treatment, if any, is available. As I said, talking about HRT, talking about being postmenopausal as well as something to be aware of, and where we can get more information. So hopefully Dr. Nighat, Arif and Dr. Sarah Ball are able to stay with us for the second half of the show.
Yes, of course.
Fantastic. And so please do stay with us, and we'll be back after this short commercial break.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Any health advice given, whether general, diet, physical or spiritual, is general only and must be verified by your doctor. If you need medical advice, please consult a doctor.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Health and Fitness Show. We are broadcasting live today on the 5th of December 2019, broadcasting to Luton and surrounding areas on 105.1 FM. If you prefer to watch as well as listen, you can do that. All you need to do is go to our Facebook page and click on our live link, and you can also listen via the Inspire FM website. I'm delighted to say we have had a number of questions. We always welcome more, and we can also take phone calls as well. If you would like to get in touch, you can do that by calling us on 01582 481822, or you can text or WhatsApp us on 07779 481822. That number again, 07779 481822. So today we are discussing the menopause and midlife women's health in general. Elizabeth, could you just do a little recap around what is the menopause?
Yes, as the Sarah and Nighat have said, it's the end of women's childbearing years, basically, when the menstruation ends and they're no longer able to have children, and with that come a lot of bodily changes and symptoms that can be quite marked, and a woman might need support to help deal with.
Fantastic. And what I should have done is ask you to reintroduce yourself for people that
I'm
missed
Elizabeth Bailey. I'm from Luton Borough Council's Public Health Team, and I'm a lady of 54 years old who knows what she's talking about. No, who has some personal experience of the matter.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And if I could just ask Dr. Nighat Arif to introduce herself.
I'm Dr. Nighat Arif. I'm a GP in Buckinghamshire with a specialist interest in women's health.
Fantastic. And finally, Sarah?
And I'm Dr. Sarah Ball, and I am too a GP with an interest in women's health and particularly the menopause.
Great. Thank you very much for giving up your evening to be with us. I'm conscious, Sarah, that originally we had only planned for the first half of the show to be about menopause, and I said you would be free at 6:30. So if you do need to leave, that's absolutely fine.
That's fine. I could talk about the menopause for weeks.
Fantastic. You're in good company. So what I would like to do is, just because listeners have taken the time out to WhatsApp some questions in, and I know Elizabeth had a question as well. well, so I would just like to do the questions kind of quick fire style. Elizabeth, do you just want to repeat your one?
I think we need to maybe talk a little bit about the role of HRT, and I'll leave that to the doctors, but I wanted to ask a question. They might want to answer it with that section of questions about what women who cannot take HRT might do to best help themselves.
Sure, so let's start with that. So Sarah, can you just explain what HRT is?
Yes, of course. So HRT stands for hormone replacement therapy, and it does what it says on the tin. So it's a way of replacing the hormones that our ovaries are no longer making in at all or in sufficient quantities. And it's for all women, it involves replacing estrogen, which is a hormone for which we have receptors all over our body. And for all those women that still have their womb, so in other words, women that haven't had a hysterectomy, it also involves taking a hormone called progesterone, which helps to protect the lining of the womb. And although it is a medication, it's a prescribed medication, I think we do have to look at it as exactly what it is. It's a replacement. So in the same way as people that have an underactive thyroid or may have diabetes, we give them prescribed medication to replace the hormones that their body has abnormally stopped making. HRT really is akin to those things. So it's just replacing what the body stopped making.
Thank you very much.
Extremely effective. I think that's probably one of the most important points is actually it's very effective at helping the symptoms and improving a woman's quality of life at the time. But crucially, what a lot of people don't realise is how helpful it is for their future health at protecting things like their bones, but also their blood vessels. So it can it dramatically reduces our risk of future health things like heart disease and dementia and diabetes and things like that.
Great. And Dr. Arif, is there anything you'd like to add on HRT, including like non-oral HRT?
Well, Dr. Sarah Ball has actually covered a lot of it. What I was going to say with HRT is there's this real fear-mongering that comes with HRT. People think that I can't have it because of studies that have been done, which have been proven to be flawed studies. HRT is linked with breast cancer or clots or strokes and heart attacks. Actually, those studies have been re-looked at, and we realise that that isn't the case, because women suffer more detrimentally without HRT. As Dr. Ball was saying, their future health is now playing a bigger role in regards to risks and benefits of HRT. For example, Pakistani women cover up a lot more. I wear the abaya and I wear a hijab as well, so I do cover up and I don't get enough sunlight. And I know that when I go through the menopause, 10 years down the line, I will be at high risk of getting osteoporosis and fractures. And we are seeing that more within Asian women, because they are denying themselves, or doctors are denying them HRT because of this misinformation around the risks. These risks have to be stratified to each woman. Each woman has to be looked at as an individual and then decided whether it's going to be beneficial for her or actually whether the risks are too high and it's not. And that is where we're missing that link at the minute. HRT is a fantastic treatment. And as Dr. Ball was saying, you wouldn't deny a diabetic insulin. Why would you deny a woman who's suffering the symptoms and her long-term health by saying to her, no, you can't have HRT?
I'm quite interested in this because I've had estrogen positive breast cancer. My doctors won't prescribe HRT to me. So it's something I'd like to understand better, to be honest.
So each woman has to be seen as an individual, and you have to look at the estrogen receptors. What are her risks? So I have patients who have had estrogen receptive cancer but still choose to go on HRT.
Really?
Because of the side effects and the benefits that they're getting. So it's really hard to answer your question in a distinct way, Elizabeth, because we have to look at your other risk factors. Are you a smoker? What is your weight like?
Don't want to say. Not on air.
Not for you, but I'm just saying, if you were in my clinic, this is what I'd be looking at.
Sure.
I'm going to look at your overall health.
Right.
And not just be focused on one thing. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Ball?
Absolutely, yeah, completely echo that. I also see a lot of women that have had estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, and again, we have a very individualised consultation, and certainly the knee-jerk reaction should not be to give HRT, but it's a woman's right to choose, and it's our role to give the information both for HRT and against HRT. And actually, due to all the media fear that we've experienced over the last sort of 2 decades, a lot of misinformation has been extrapolated. And actually, if you go into the depths of the evidence, there is no hard and fast evidence to suggest that taking HRT after estrogen positive, receptor positive breast cancer actually increases your chance of recurrence. I don't know if you've come across a book. There is a fantastic book called Estrogen Matters, which was written by Professor Blooming, who's an American oncologist, and it's fascinating read about everything that we do and don't know about estrogen, and actually that a lot of our practices that make us fear breast cancer and how to treat women with HRT in general, but also those women that have had breast cancer, actually is very outdated and is paternalistic and is not involving the patient in the decision. So it does depend on lots of things, like whether you have problematic symptoms or whether you're looking at future health protection, and the details of your cancer and when it was and what type of, and all those sorts of details. But actually a proper individualized lengthy consultation with somebody that has an interest can be really important. So I think you shouldn't just consider the door completely closed.
No, that's quite interesting.
I just want to say, on the back of what Dr. Ball has just said, we know that HRT given in different modes. So, for example, there are different ways of taking estrogen. It's not always a tablet. You can have a gel, you can have transdermally, a patch. And the risks are different or lessened compared to which mode you decide to take. And those are the other things that we need to be getting across to women. You could have estrogen just as a gel. It doesn't have to be a tablet. So you can have estrogen as a patch. And those are the things that women don't seem to be fully aware of.
Yeah. And again, if a woman has problems with sort of genital atrophy, using localized estrogen is completely safe in almost every patient that's had
even with breast cancer.
And that's usually restricted for many women, and that can be life-changing for women. So I think sometimes it's really trying to just sort of pursue a specialist and make sure that all the options have been explored.
And that in turn has also answered one of the other questions that we had, which was a more general question around someone had heard that I have heard people who are scared to use HRT due to the risk of cancer. So I think we've clarified that those are flawed studies. And that's that. Okay, and the other question is, so we spoke about the symptoms of menopause in the first half of the show, and this question is, how long do the symptoms last? So I'm going to, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask the question because it's been asked of us. So, Dr. Nighat Arif, can I start with you?
Well, I hope Dr. Ball will agree with me. It varies completely from woman to woman. So we have, 1 in 4, we say, will sort of sail through, I hate that saying, will sail through the menopause and have a few symptoms. Then 2 out of those 4 women will get some varied amount of symptoms, from hot flushes, memory fog, depression type symptoms, irritability, aches and pains, maybe some itchy eyes. And then 1 in 4 will feel absolutely horrendously and under the verge of which you'll feel possibly suicidal. And how long the symptoms go on for? Well, I've got 70, 80-year-olds who still get hot flushes, or they still get memory fog or exhaustion and various different types of symptoms. I would, from my clinical experience, it varies so much from woman to woman.
And I personally, I hadn't appreciated the 2 in 4 and then the 1 in 4 in terms of the impact that it's having. I didn't quite appreciate it was that profound. So 75%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cutting across somebody, but we've run workshops at our place of work at the council, and part of developing those, we spoke to women in the council about their experiences, and because I haven't suffered too badly, I don't think. But I've met colleagues and they opened up to me, and I was absolutely astonished by what they'd experienced. Very, very profound symptoms. And in some cases, they didn't really understand what was going on at all, for various reasons. And it shows you it does vary an enormous amount.
And the men in the relationship, they will also say, who don't really understand what the symptoms are like, or what their partner's experiencing, because the woman that they love and adore is changing, and she has changed, and it's gradual. It's like a drip effect. So they'll say she's a completely different person, or she's changed as soon as she hit her 40s. So, and that actually affects the men's health. So they get stress, high blood pressure, risk of diabetes, particularly in the ethnic minorities that I deal with. So you can't just see the woman as an individual. You have to look at, it's affecting her partner's health with it.
And even if I could take that further in terms of if it's affecting your sister, or it's affecting your mum, or it's affecting, I think it's just that, just one of the reasons why we're so keen to talk about it is just that awareness around what is going on, like you were saying. And when people are aware of this, then they're more accommodating.
When I first spoke to you, Suliman, in the workplace about it, the look on your face was a picture. I didn't want to know anything about this, but I mean, it's benefited, hasn't you? Thinking about it is beneficial to do that.
Sorry, Dr. If you wanted to come in there.
I was just going to say, there's a cultural attitude to downplay it. So my South Asian women, they will always say to me, this is something that only happens to European women. My own mother, I'll tell you a funny story. My mum, she won't mind me telling you this. She's 56, so she's going through the menopausal symptoms, and I came home and I said to her, Mum, I think this is what you're suffering from. Bearing in mind, I'm a GP and I do women's health and I do menopause at work. And she said to me, no, this is only something that Gaudians go through. And my jaw hit the floor. I was absolutely shocked. And I said to her, this isn't something that European women or white women just go through. All women go through this. But there's this cultural notion that this isn't something that affects us. And then on top of that, there's this notion that, well, go to Pakistan, stand in a 50-degree heat, you'll know what a hot flush is. Their range of what a hot flush is and how that experience, do you see, their experiences to life are so different. So getting a hot flush in the UK is nothing compared to a heat wave in Pakistan.
Sure. And
I think that also brings in the thing that hot sweats and flushes are they're the commonest symptom, certainly in the white population. I think in the Asian population, the joint aches and pains are also kind of up there with the commonest symptoms. But many women, or certainly women that come to our clinic, they suffer the hot sweats and flushes, but they can deal with them. What they often are struggling more is the psychological symptoms, the reason why they don't feel themselves when they're shouting at their family and they're struggling at work. And many women hear that I'll put up with the hot sweats and flushes, I'll soldier on, and they'll finish eventually. But actually, another thing that many people don't know about is that actually hot sweats and flushes actually aren't good for you, and that we know that those women that suffer the most with those sorts of symptoms actually go on to have more heart disease and osteoporosis and diabetes than women who don't suffer the hot sweats and flushes. So there is no medal for putting up with them. It would actually be far more sensible to try and tackle them, because that's better for you in the long run.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to chip in there.
For my little story.
Oh, you got it. I was just going to say it's not all bad, is one thing. And you were talking about psychological symptoms. And speaking as somebody who, throughout my childbearing years, had mood swings associated with my menstrual cycle, they stopped with the menopause. And that was an absolute boon as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it's a joyous event. I mean, a lot of women in the South Asian community, they celebrate it, particularly the cultural factor, because now they don't have periods. They can go to the mosque without any restrictions. They can participate in Ramadan. They can participate at weddings, at funerals. And it's actually really a joyous event. And some aunties that I know have like menopause parties. And
I didn't have one of those.
You missed out, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'll have another
it's great
one
because there is an awakening amongst particularly millennials, I would say, so women in their 30s, 40s, who are understanding from an ethnic background that it's something that they need to be explored, but be aware of the long-term health implications and not be too frightened that they stop their cycle. Because on the flip side, it's almost seen as now that the woman can't childbear, she's useless. And typically, unfortunately, in some cultural practice, the man might be able to take another wife but if he wants more children. And so those cultural practices still do play a massive role.
And I just want to pick up on in terms of, because I'm really conscious we're approaching the end of the show, and so the time has absolutely flown by. And I'm just, the health and fitness show, you know, we often talk about various different things, and one of the points that often comes up is around actually there are things you can do to help you with your symptoms, and often it's around physical activity and a better diet. But if I could maybe start with Dr. Ball in terms of, you know, does that have any positive impacts in regards to the menopause specifically?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, you know, again, the menopause really can be used as an opportunity to sort of reevaluate your health really for the next sort of part of your life. And so diet is really important because that can affect not only our bones, but it's also part of weight control, and it has an influence on our mood and energy levels. So yeah, diet's important. We need to think about vitamin D, as Nighat said earlier, and taking a supplement all year round, and making sure we're getting enough calcium in our diet as well, and if we're not, to supplement that. As you said, exercise is crucially important. It has all sorts of benefits for our cardiovascular health and our bone strength, as well as weight control. And also we should be looking after our psychological health, and actually, you know, having time for relaxation and meditation and things like that. And I just wanted to revisit something which I think is a really important point, is that many women can't tackle their lifestyle issues because they are feeling so awful with their menopause. So they may be completely demotivated, they're tired, they can't multitask, they can't concentrate, and they've let everything go, and they're often maybe indulging in too many sugary foods, they're not exercising anymore, and so they gain weight, and they feel even worse about themselves. They get into a vicious circle. And actually things like weight gain is actually a far bigger risk factor for breast cancer than HRT is. So often, by considering treatments like HRT, women then can really pursue a much healthier lifestyle, and therefore they're actually reducing their future health risk, and especially things like breast cancer, which is what so many women fear when they start thinking about treating their menopause. But yeah, there's so many things that can be helpful.
Sure. So if I've understood that, that's you're really saying about dealing with the root cause. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. So trying to there sort of used to be a sort of a stepwise approach to the menopause, that a woman should go off and, you know, eat wonderful healthy food and, you know, run marathons every week, and if that wasn't helping, then come back and we might consider some hormone replacement therapy. And actually it doesn't work that way round, because if a woman is feeling that dreadful, she can't make those changes, and often you have to reverse the order and restore a woman's hormonal balance, so that she can then make all the other necessary changes, which overall will really help her future health in all sorts of ways.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And just again, just conscious that we're running out of time, but I just wanted to bring in Dr. Arif here in terms of, you know, this is an area that you've done a lot of campaigning around, and is there anything you really like to get across to listeners kind of as we're approaching the end?
Yeah, firstly, I just want to say thank you for picking such a topic, because it's not typically spoken about within the South Asian community, and the listeners from Luton and across the UK, so South Asian women will, or Asian women from a more conservative background will feel, this is great, this is a bit of a liberation. I just want to say to women, please don't be embarrassed to talk about your symptoms. Elizabeth has said that. There's no shame attached to it at all. It's not your fault. No woman has to be perfect all the time, and come and see your GP. And if I can just say that in Punjabi, I'll be so grateful.
Please.
So मैं बस जो listener है मैं उन्हें कहना चाहती है, please आके शर्मिंदगी वाली गल कोई नहीं है. अगर ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ symptom होंदे है तो ਤੁਸੀਂ डॉक्टर को जाओ, symptom अपने लिख लो, तो डॉक्टर ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ, ਆਪਣੇ आग तक फ्रेंड ਨਾਲ अपने ਖਾਵਨ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਭੈਣਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਿਸਟਰ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਇਲਾਜ ਹੈਗਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਚੁੱਪਚਾਪ ਘਰ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਸਫਰ ਨਾ ਕਰੋ
That's great. Thank you very much. Elizabeth, is there anything?
I think I'd ask women to be aware that you do have rights as a woman going through menopause in the workplace. Completely. And in fact, larger organisations are more and more developing menopause policies. But it could be, if they don't have one, policies around flexible working and reasonable adjustments could help improve your quality of working life.
That's great. And so just kind of in summary as from me is in terms of for people that would like more information and just to kind of follow this conversation on forward, Sarah, I believe a colleague of yours has developed a menopause manual?
Yes, so I am fortunate enough to work alongside Dr. Louise Newson, who is amazing and is all over the media and has done an amazing job at getting menopause spoken about, and she's just recently released the Haynes Manual of the Menopause, which is a brilliant read. It's really good as a stocking filler, and it really is very simple, short chapters that go through all the different facets of the menopause, how to recognise it, and the things that you can do about it. So that's great. And just another thing which I really think is going to be amazing is we're launching an app for women to track their perimenopause and menopause, and it's you can find it on balance-app.com, and that I think will be launched in the spring, but you can sign up to it now, and I think that will go global, so that will be in every language, and I really think that will be a brilliant source of information for women who otherwise wouldn't talk about it or seek help.
Thank you. And Dr. Arif, just in terms of, I know you're quite active on social media. I know I learn a lot from your social media stuff. Can you just share what platforms you're on and how people can connect?
I'm more than happy for people to send me a message or ask me a question. So my Twitter handle and my Instagram handle is at Dr. Nighat Arif. Any questions, just please, for all women, don't suffer in silence. I'd rather that you ask me a question. There's no silly questions. And there's nothing off limits that you can't ask me.
Thank you. That's very kind. And then just lastly, unfortunately, Diane couldn't be with us, but there is the hashtag Make Menopause Matter Facebook page that is worth checking out.
Yes, sign the petition. We're nearly at 100,000 signatures.
Yeah, please sign that. It's so important.
Fantastic. So there's a call to action for every listener to sign the petition. Unfortunately, we've got 10 seconds left, so I'll just take this opportunity to thank all our guests and wish everyone will join us next week. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
No.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.